Now, the long-anticipated final results of the Zimbabwe election were released early this morning by the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission in Harare. ZANU-PF's president, Emmerson Mnangagwa, has won Zimbabwe's landmark election. Mnangagwa won 50.8% of the vote in the presidential poll, and this is 313,027 more than his closest rival, which was the MDC Alliance's Nelson Chamisa, who won 44.3% of the vote. ZANU-PF also won close to 70% of the seats in the country's National Assembly. The Opposition MDC denounced the outcome, however, saying that the count was fake and therefore will take the matter to courts. And as we continue to monitor the developments in that country, we are joined now by Dr David Monyae, who is a political analyst from the University of Johannesburg. Welcome. Thanks for coming through.
Good morning.
So, firstly, what did you make of all the developments this week around the Zimbabwe election?
Exciting and shocking in the end. However, I think Zimbabwe is going through a phase of normalizing both politics and economics. And this is a small window of opportunity for the country with the election behind Zimbabweans. Now is time to really think seriously whether they're going to seize the moment to deal with the biggest problem, which is the economy, how to revive the economy. I think both the ruling party as well as the opposition need to really sit down after all the noise and sad loss of life to really put the country first.
How difficult is that task going to be, getting the Zimbabwean economy back on track? This is a country that does not even have or trade in its own currency. This is a country where the economy has been all but decimated. And early on in the week, I was speaking to Ms. Lebohang Peko, and we were saying, it's not necessarily a proxy for the betterment of the economy, whoever wins this election.
That's the main reason why they need to unite. And I think for President Mnangagwa, he should reach out to the opposition. He can't rule alone, even though he has won the elections. There's no need for excitement. Bring certain elements within the opposition. There are quite a number of dynamic young leaders within MDC that could assist him in terms of bringing unity. And as you can see, the division that you rightly pointed out, the entire urban area is occupied and controlled by the MDC, while the rural area is ZANU-PF. You can't run a country with such division. You need the urban area to govern and bring stability. Therefore, I think the next 5 years, for me, it remains a transition phase. The party of the future remains MDC. However, they made a lot of blunders, and it has cost them lack of unity. You see young, dynamic Nelson Chamisa failed to really bring all other elements within the opposition together, given the lessons on the African continent that main parties that govern for long years are taken out of power through coalition, from the opposition. And this time around, Nelson Chamisa did not run this election properly. However, there are lessons that he learned, and hopefully he would put together, have a new strategy of how to confront future elections. He has an advantage of age. What is needed is soberness and to be seen to have a statement in stabilizing the economy, which should be the central aim of all parties.
Dr. Monyae, it's interesting that you say MDC is the party for the future, because whilst the presidential race was a lot closer, if you look at the votes for Parliament, for the National Assembly, over 70% there, more than a two-thirds majority going to ZANU-PF. How do you explain that in the context of your statement?
I think, let's face it, we're still waiting for more than 43 different sets of observers. All of their reports, I think, in the course of this week, we're going to get and fully understand and study what went wrong. I doubt very much there's been that kind of widespread cheating on part of the MDs, part of the ZANU-PF rather. However, the playing field was not level. I think we need to admit on that. I doubt very much if MDC had full access and advantage in terms of resources to really campaign openness in terms of the communication. The Zimbabwe Broadcasting Corporation, the newspapers, there are quite a number. I think for some of us who have observed elections, 16 years ago, in Zimbabwe, fully understands that the traditional leaders play a critical role. And therefore, I think with time, MDC will have an opportunity to play and also to gain support within the rural areas.
And the MDC, of course, also denouncing the outcome of this election. So how do they not only bring themselves together as opposition, but also find, common ground with ZANU-PF in order to move Zimbabwe forward?
I think the danger for the opposition is as much as they have a right to challenge the system, and they need to be allowed to test the institutions of democracy. The judiciary need to come in with all its weaknesses to ensure that they challenge, provided they bring the evidence. At the moment, there's so much of talk without evidence. What is needed for the international community is to see hard evidence of cheating. However, at some point, within a month or so, there is a need to unite the country and move forward without really going on the streets in the manner in which they did. I think they caused the havoc. Unfortunately, 6 people died. They should not have tried to storm the headquarters of the election, as well as causing havoc in the city. This, we should not forget that the military authored this change. They removed President Robert Mugabe. They are behind the current president, and they remain a strong player. And one will expect, with time, the military to go back to the barracks.
Not just strong, but an integral player is the military in Zimbabwean politics at the moment, because it goes beyond just being a military for the safeguard of the country. These are people who have very close ties to the leadership in the country, who would seem to have a vested interest in whatever the outcome may be. So how does Zimbabwe move themselves from that situation to a situation whereby the military does find itself as just that, a military that is subservient to civilian rule?
I think there's a need to look at the institutions of governance. MDC need to contribute to ensure that you normalize these institutions, from judiciary to the military, the police, the intelligence, all important role players. And that takes time. You still have politics of post-Robert Mugabe, but the manner in which the Zimbabwe state is structured, it still has that Mugabeism in it. And to really expect it to change overnight because of election, I think it's a wishful thinking. And that's why it will be unwise for MDC to really send people in harm's way, rather play a very constructive role in where it matters most in the economy, and also engage the government on key issues that brings about fundamental change on this institution, including the Electoral Commission itself. The manner in which it managed these elections, there has been some improvements, but overall, one won't say it's a global standard of how elections are conducted.
Well, Dr. Monyae, thanks so much for coming through this morning. And obviously still a very long way to go in order to get to that point where Zimbabwe can revive its economy, because whoever comes to the party there through funding or whichever other means, they obviously will put conditions to this. And therefore, we will come back and discuss some of the other developments around what is happening in Zimbabwe after the break.